The IMF has long operated like a global empire cloaked in humanitarian language. It enters struggling nations under the banner of stabilization, but what follows is financial suffocation. Countries like Burkina Faso, already on the edge, are lured with promises of aid but shackled with impossible repayment terms. These so-called rescue packages are not gifts, they are traps layered with conditions that benefit foreign interests. Once the ink dries on an IMF deal, national sovereignty begins to erode piece by piece. Public sectors are the first to fall, with hospitals, schools, and social services gutted in the name of austerity. The people suffer while the elites smile, because the IMF doesn't just demand repayment, it demands control. It tells governments which industries to privatize, which subsidies to cut, and even what prices citizens must pay for food and fuel. Local currencies collapse under IMF-imposed devaluations, destroying purchasing power and plunging millions into poverty overnight. Agriculture is redirected away from feeding local populations and toward cash crops meant for export, leaving domestic food security in ruins. The very systems meant to uplift nations are deliberately hollowed out. Debt repayments are prioritized over human lives, and budgets are slashed at the exact moment when investment is needed most. Instead of growth, what follows is dependence, a permanent state of economic kneeling. And every time the crisis deepens, the IMF returns with a new loan and even harsher terms. It's a cycle that feeds itself: more loans, more cuts, more pain, more control. This isn't development, it's extraction dressed up in suits and statistics. Burkina Faso was no different. It accepted IMF programs that promised stability but delivered collapse. Its people, rich in culture and resources, were turned into passive subjects of foreign finance. The country was told it could not afford to build its future unless it first paid back the very forces that had looted it. Its gold, its land, its future, all handed over in silent transactions. What the world calls structural adjustment is in reality the legalized theft of national wealth. The IMF doesn't send armies, but it conquers just the same. It doesn't need bullets, it uses budgets. And the damage is deeper because it's invisible, buried in spreadsheets and technical language no one questions. The same playbook used in Latin America, Asia, and Eastern Europe was deployed across Africa with devastating precision. Entire generations lost to policies written in Washington and Paris, not in Ouagadougou or Lagos. This is not conspiracy, it's documented history. Burkina Faso's economy was not mismanaged, it was managed to serve someone else. The loans were never meant to be repaid, they were meant to bind. The IMF doesn't build, it dismantles, and it does so with a smile. And for far too long, the world called that progress. Captain Ibrahim Traoré did not rise to power through empty promises or Western approval, he emerged through fire, through rebellion, through the demand of a people betrayed for generations. At just 34 years old, he shattered the illusion that leadership must come wrapped in suits and silence. He did not bow to France, did not whisper to the IMF, he roared for sovereignty. In a continent where foreign influence puppeteers presidents, Traoré ripped the strings and chose to bleed for independence rather than beg for aid. He spoke not with caution, but with clarity, calling out neocolonialism as the cancer it is. When the people marched in the streets, they didn't carry photos of celebrities or politicians, they carried his face, because he symbolized defiance. He stood before the world and said that Burkina Faso would not be a colony dressed as a republic. He refused to protect foreign mining contracts that strip the land and leave the people in dust. He cancelled deals that gave Western companies 90% of profits from African gold. He told his generals that freedom without control of resources is fiction. While others took photo ops with donors, he went to the fields, to the soldiers, to the hungry, and said, "We fight for our soil." He rejected the language of diplomacy when that language served only the powerful. He refused to call exploitation partnership. He named the enemies out loud, those who exploit Africa's weakness and then write the headlines. His speeches were not polished, they were explosive. Every word landed like thunder across a continent aching to stand tall. While presidents across Africa feared isolation, Traoré welcomed it, saying, "Better to walk alone in truth than kneel in comfort." He wore his military uniform like armor, not just for war, but for war against lies. Under his command, foreign military bases were given ultimatums. French troops were told to leave not tomorrow, not next year, immediately. The colonial flag was not lowered with apology, it was torn down with pride. Traoré didn't wait for permission to reclaim dignity. He challenged the very institutions that once held his country hostage. He stood on the graves of revolutionary martyrs like Thomas Sankara and said, "Their dreams will not die in silence." He honored them not with words, but with action, with risk, with resistance. He aligned Burkina Faso not with those who offered lectures, but with those offering self-respect. He opened talks with leaders in Mali and Niger, forming a brotherhood of defiance. He envisioned an alliance not bound by fear of the West, but by the love of African self-rule. He didn't just change the language, he changed the temperature. He made cowardice expensive. He made submission shameful. And in doing so, he reminded the entire continent what true leadership looks like. Not polished. Not passive. But bold, raw, and unapologetically African.